ثواني بس اتاكد ان هو شغال كده.
ثالثة
عند باب البيت لما يدخلوا الصوفة يدخل معاهم في الجو.
أو بقول لك خلي يلف على الناس.
شوف دلوقتي
يلا يا شباب يلا يا شباب.
استنى بقى تقول ما تعشاش تصور.
ما تعشاش تصور.
يقولوا هم
Hello everybody, my name is Dr. Nicholas Warner and I am in charge of the project. The American Research Center in Egypt is running the ground, and we have an exciting project here at Carter House, which is designed to coincide with the centenary of the discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb by Howard Carter in 1922. So the project here has several aspects. The conservation side of it will focus on providing a French drainage system around the house in order to provide ventilated area immediately next to the foundation. We'll be improving the visitor experience at the site through a number of interventions, trying to keep the interior of the house as much as possible resembling a house of the time that Carter occupied it. So period furnishings and things like that. Keeping the visitor information panels outside the house, and then we'll be improving a lot of the seating areas and the sort of shade areas for the visitors. I hope that we'll be able to revisit this site and you will be able to see some major changes for the better. Thank you.
I found these two pieces which
The mission of the American Research Center in Egypt is to support research on all aspects of Egyptian history and culture, foster a broader knowledge about Egypt among the public, and strengthen American-Egyptian cultural ties. For more than 70 years, RC has led the way for the protection and conservation of Egyptian sites and monuments. From restoring one of Egypt's most glorious painted sanctuaries at the Red Monastery, to the Conservation and Field Training School for Ministry Conservators at Khonsu Temple in Luxor, RC preserves some of our world's most valuable sites for future generations. Founded in 1948, RC began with a vision of establishing a world-class research center to bring together Egyptian and American scholars. Today, in partnership with the Egyptian Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities, along with numerous global institutions, RC has completed over 95 conservation projects, funded more than 700 scholarly research fellows, and awarded more than $8 million in grants through our Antiquities Endowment Fund to support the work of documenting and preserving Egyptians' cultural heritage. In Egypt, RC works closely with the government, educational institutions, and the community to create sustainable heritage projects that invest in the local community while preserving and protecting historical historic sites. In the U.S., RC has a strong network of chapters, members, and research supporting members. RC delivers a vast array of virtual education opportunities and cultural events, all to encourage the exploration of Egypt's long and rich history. Whether you're a student just embarking upon your research, an Egyptian archaeology enthusiast, or lifelong Egyptologist, we welcome you to discover Egypt through the world and work of the American Research Center in Egypt.
Hello everybody, my name is Dr. Nicholas Warner and I am in charge of the projects that the American Research Center in Egypt is running on the ground. And we have an exciting project here at Carter House, which is designed to coincide with the centenary of the discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb by Howard Carter in 1922. So the project here has several aspects. The conservation side of it will focus and I am in charge of the projects that the American Research Center in Egypt is running on the ground. And we have an exciting project here at Carter House, which is designed to coincide with the centenary on the discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb by Howard Carter in 1922. So the project here has several aspects. The conservation side of it will focus on providing a French drainage system around the house in order to provide ventilated area immediately next to the foundation. We'll be improving the visitor experience at the site through a number of interventions, trying to keep the interior of the house as much as possible resembling a house of the time that Carter occupied it. So period furnishings and things like that. Keeping the visitor information panels outside the house, and then we'll be improving a lot of the seating areas and the sort of shade areas for the visitors. I hope that we'll be able to revisit this site and you will be able to see some major changes for the better. Thank you.
I found these two pieces which
The mission of the American Research Center in Egypt is to support research on all aspects of Egyptian history and culture, foster a broader knowledge about Egypt among the public, and strengthen American-Egyptian cultural ties. For more than 70 years, RC has led the way for the protection and conservation of Egyptian sites and monuments. From restoring one of Egypt's most glorious painted sanctuaries at the Red Monastery, to the conservation and field training school for ministry conservators at Khonsu Temple in Luxor, RC preserves some of our world's most valuable sites for future generations. Founded in 1948, RC began with a vision of establishing a world-class research center to bring together Egyptian and American scholars. Today, in partnership with the Egyptian Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities, along with numerous global institutions, RC has completed over 95 conservation projects, funded more than 700 scholarly research fellows, and awarded more than $8 million in grants through our Antiquities Endowment Fund to support the work of documenting and preserving Egyptians' cultural heritage. In Egypt, RC works closely with the government, educational institutions, and the community to create sustainable heritage projects that invest in the local community while preserving and protecting historic sites. In the U.S., RC has a strong network of chapters, members, and research supporting members. RC delivers a vast array of virtual education opportunities and cultural events, all to encourage the exploration of Egypt's long and rich history. Whether you're a student just embarking upon your research, an Egyptian archaeology enthusiast, or lifelong Egyptologist, we welcome you to discover Egypt through the world and work of the American Research Center in Egypt.
Hello everybody, my name is Dr. Nicholas Warner and I am in charge of the projects that the American Research Center in Egypt is running on the ground. And we have an exciting project here at Carter House, which is designed to coincide with the centenary of the discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb by Howard Carter in 1922. So the project here has several aspects. The conservation side of it will focus on providing a French drainage system around the house in order to provide ventilated area immediately next to the foundation. We'll be improving the visitor experience at the site through a number of interventions, trying to keep the interior of the house as much as possible resembling a house of the time that Carter occupied it. So period furnishings and things like that. Keeping the visitor information panels outside the house, and then we'll be improving a lot of the seating areas and the sort of shade areas for the visitors. I hope that we'll be able to revisit this site and you will be able to see some major changes for the better. Thank you.
Research Center in Egypt is to support research on all aspects of Egyptian history and culture, foster a broader knowledge about Egypt among the public, and strengthen American-Egyptian cultural ties. For more than 70 years, RC has led the way for the protection and conservation of Egyptian sites and monuments. From restoring one of Egypt's most glorious painted sanctuaries at the Red Monastery, to the conservation and field training school for ministry conservators at Khonsu Temple in Luxor, RC preserves some of our world's most valuable sites for future generations. Founded in 1948, RC began with a vision of establishing a world-class research center to bring together Egyptian and American scholars. Today, in partnership with the Egyptian Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities, along with numerous global institutions, RC has completed over 95 conservation projects, funded more than 700 scholarly research fellows, and awarded more than $8 million in grants through our Antiquities Endowment Fund to support the work of documenting and preserving Egyptian cultural heritage. In Egypt, RC works closely with the government, educational institutions, and the community to create sustainable heritage projects that invest in the local community while preserving and protecting historic sites. In the U.S., RC has a strong network of chapters, members, and research supporting members. RC delivers a vast array of virtual education opportunities and cultural events, all to encourage the exploration of Egypt's long and rich.
I found these two pieces.
The mission of the American Research Center in Egypt is to support research on all aspects of Egyptian history and culture, foster a broader knowledge about Egypt among the public, and strengthen American-Egyptian cultural ties. For more than 70 years, RC has led the way for the protection and conservation of Egyptian sites and monuments. From restoring one of Egypt's most glorious painted sanctuaries at the Red Monastery, to the conservation and field training school for ministry conservators at Khonsu Temple in Luxor, RC preserves some of our world's most valuable sites for future generations. Founded in 1948, RC began with a vision of establishing a world-class research center to bring together Egyptian and American scholars. Today, in partnership with the Egyptian Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities, along with numerous global institutions, RC has completed over 95 conservation projects, funded more than 700 scholarly research fellows, and awarded more than $8 million in grants through our Antiquities Endowment Fund to support the work of documenting and preserving Egyptian's cultural heritage. In Egypt, RC works closely with the government, educational institutions, and the community to create sustainable heritage projects that invest in the local community while preserving and protecting historic sites. In the U.S., RC has a strong network of chapters
Exciting project here at Carter House, which is designed to coincide with the centenary of the discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb by Howard Carter in 1922. So the project here has several aspects. The conservation side of it will focus on providing a French drainage system around the house in order to provide ventilated area immediately next to the foundation. We'll be improving the visitor experience at the site through a number of interventions, trying to keep the interior of the house as much as possible resembling a house of the time that Carter occupied it. So period furnishings and things like that. Keeping the visitor information panels outside the house. And then we'll be improving a lot of the seating areas and the sort of shade areas for the visitors. I hope that we'll be able to revisit this site and you will be able to see some major changes for the better. Thank you.
Knowledge about Egypt among the public and strengthen American Egyptian cultural ties. For more than 70 years, RC has led the way for the protection and conservation of Egyptian sites and monuments. From restoring one of Egypt's most glorious painted sanctuaries at the Red Monastery, to the Conservation and Field Training School for Ministry Conservators at Khonsu Temple in Luxor, RC preserves some of our world's most valuable sites for future generations. Founded in 1948, RC began with a vision of establishing a world-class research center to bring together Egyptian and American scholars. Today, in partnership with the Egyptian Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities, along with numerous global institutions, RC has completed over 95 conservation projects, funded more than 700 scholarly research fellows,
had stayed cooler longer in the hot weather, so it would have been a good workroom for him. And in one of the photos of him at his desk, there's a single blurry photograph above it. And if you zoom in and use the eye of faith, it's a photograph of a statue of Tutankhamun, not from the tomb, from the Temple of Karnak. And it's a 20th century Leyland and Landrock photograph. The original negative is still preserved in Cairo, and they printed us one to go in the space where it was 80 odd years ago. Filling up the rack is a rogues gallery of the dramatis personae in the discovery of the tomb. Carter, Carnarvon, Alfred Lucas, and Arthur Mace, who conserved objects. And last but one, Mor Oshana Basha, the Minister for Public Works in 1923, 1924, who, in the Sartagul government, breaks the news to Carter and Lady Carnarvon, Lord Carnarvon is dead by now, that they can't expect half of the tomb. Mr. Carter's LCD screen with contemporary. You might remember there was a larger displayed screen. This now just has contemporary footage of the excavation shot by Harry Burton, the excavation photographer, which will be playing throughout the afternoon. It's 6 minutes, but if you come back to watch the end, there's a nice shot where Carter doffs his hat to the camera, the Charlie Chaplin pose. And then again, in the previous renovation, this was his office. We know he said that Uncle Howard's bedroom is here.
Yes, honestly.
Downton Abbey. We live in Downton Abbey. And Hampton Castle. We've got Tutankhamun and Maggie Smith.
And this is an appropriate place to stop because it's, as I say, meet the Carnarvon. This is Howard Carter's bedroom. Lord Carnarvon, when he stayed here, as he did on occasion, stayed next door. And what we were lucky enough to get from Chicago House were 2 metal beds from the 1924 Chicago House that was built on the West Bank here. And Chicago House, they are pack rats, and so they have everything in storage from that period. And it's only a question of trying to be nice to them, to persuade them that they should be giving us some of the stuff to put on display. So we've been very generous with their gifts. This room has got a few photographs to give a kind of period flavour of Luxor and what it was like at the time of Carter, because obviously it's changed almost beyond recognition, apart from some of them the major monumental sites. And some of these photographs you'll see when we go through. So I think if we don't mind moving on, because I hear...
Lord Carnarvon wanted to build an expedition site house here for Carter as well, because he was a great photographer. So that's where he built a darkroom. So we have about 500 photographs from this time at home, which is so beautiful. They're a celebration of Egypt then.
And we'll see the darkroom very shortly.
Which is quite fun. He was a great photographer.
This is the dining room.
We know this was the dining room with a nice deep veranda and those things that sound stay in the heat. None of the pictures here ever made it to Egypt, as far as I know, but Carter came from a talented family of artists. His father, Samuel, was the chief animal painter for the Illustrated London News, the great magazine of dentists' waiting rooms at the time, which in fact had a big, was specialised in reporting archaeological finds. So come the discovery of the tomb of Tutankhamun, the royal tombs of Ur and so on, the Illustrated London News had a lot of that. So his father painted this rather saccharine picture of a deer and Bambi and Bambi's mother, and then also this picture that, to me at least, says peasants wending their weary way home. It's painted in 1885. These, by the way, I should say, are we have good quality photographs and have them printed on canvas to archival standard, so they're not real, but should look pretty good and should last quite well. Howard Carter was 11 when this was painted, and the owner said, it's a self-portrait of the artist's father with young Howard. And I thought, it doesn't look like the father, it doesn't look like his son, it doesn't look like he's 11. But I said, why do you say that? And the owner said, well, the man who sold it to me said it was Howard Carter, which obviously helped. One of Carter's brothers, Verney, named after the French painter Maurice Vernet, worked with him at Dare Buckley, and his brother William was a talented painter specialising in portraiture. Behind over there is Carter at the height of his fame and also of his troubles in 1923, 1924. The original is in the Griffith Institute in Oxford, but he's looking pensive at what's to come. And then on the other wall, we both think it's a really rather nice still life. It's there's enough Ben Nicholson in it to look slightly avant-garde, and it's a very nice painting, again by his brother. And then the two photographs on the wall date from the late 30s. We think they were taken the same day or a few days of one another. Over there, Carter, who's the only man not wearing a tarbouche, is showing a young King Farouk around the Valley of the Kings and the tomb. And then over here, Farouk, Abbé Drieton, who was the French director of the Antiquities Service, and Carter are inspecting some statues, and we're not sure whether these have just been excavated or they're being offered to King Farouk for sale, but it's a memento of, I think only one or two times that Carter met the king. But the food you're eating in the dining room has to come from somewhere. And Nicholas will show you on the way to the servants' quarters, demolished locked off. Little cupboards. And again, Chicago House provided some 1920s tins of biscuits. The original ones. They kept everything. Soda siphon, the crockery from the 30s, and then we bought various. You can get them in many places. A tin of Bovril, brandy butter, a thing of foie gras, and then some indigestion tablets after all that rich tinned food. Yes.
I hope they preserve that under lock and key. That's very highly valued.
This room,
I can think of many of them. You're looking at a few of those.
Howard's ginger ale.
This is the room that in the previous arrangement was bedroom 2, but we think that there's no evidence as to what it was in Carter's lifetime, but with the 2 big north-facing windows, the courtyard wall outside is modern from the 50s, so Carter would have had a uninterrupted view north to the desert and nice diffuse light. It was obviously probably his artist studio. Again, nothing in here is original. But we've got a rickety easel with some watercolors. Chicago House gave us this wonderful 1930s artist's drawing table. The drawer inside has sketching equipment of the age, carefully siliconed down. And then on the walls, from I think hanging from the first picture rail installed in Egypt in 40 years, reproductions of watercolors by Carter, some of which were painted at the time he was living here and conceivably in this room. When Carter was on his uppers after leaving the Antiquities Service in 1905, he scratched a living in Luxor, working as a tour guide, an antiquities dealer, and painter of watercolors. On this wall is a set for a wealthy American couple, now in the Worcester Art Museum. Over there, objects from the tomb of Uya and Tuya in the Valley of the Kings. If he hadn't blotted his copybook, Carter could have discovered it himself, but it was left to his successor, and Theodore Davis, the man who funded the dig, threw Carter a bone and said, right, you can illustrate these for the volume I'm making. And then on the back, a page from the Illustrated London News with Carter's watercolors of animals in hieroglyphs and animals in Egypt. And again, you may remember from previous tours, there were photographs and sketches on tables covered by sheets of glass, which were dusty and faded and nasty. And we've replaced these with print tracks containing sketches and drawings by Carter. So at greater leisure, you can flip through. And these, like all the labels, are printed on aluminium. They're long-lasting. They shouldn't fade. Inshallah. Well done. And again, everything, they should be they can be white clean.
You cannot see them so easily.
No laziness.
Well, we gave quite a few graphics of this place ages ago, and which none were left. I read the word paper, not
the heavier the better, no?
And so we're moving from the Carter's quarters, going through the green baize door into the kitchen and the darkroom suite. As Fiona said, Carter and Carnarvon were both keen photographers. So there's a room, I have no idea how it will fit all of us, that shows that was the darkroom, that shows how the process worked.
built a photograph studio at the back of the castle, and he
Yes,
had a camera club, so he led the way. And Carter didn't have the money to start with cameras, so Carnarvon did the photograph.
Did Carnarvon pay outright for this, or did Carter pay from his own,
He didn't have
out
any
of
money.
his salary?
Carnarvon built much of the house for him. He shipped the bricks out, and then Carter did his own design.
No, the bricks, in fact, they're all mud bricks. The one in the hall.
Originally, they were inside. He shipped out pallets of bricks from Bretby Garden.
There's only one brick. I mean, the foundations haven't been replaced. It was I'll show you a photo later. That I think is a joke. The single brick.
He sent out 2 pallets.
We're going to see more of them now.
There was no running water here, so everything would have to have been carried by hand or by donkey. And so the washing facilities would have been rudimentary.
Fairly basic, and we've done our best to recreate a dry bathroom. People should, it's a rather cramped space, so I recommend maybe move on. And perhaps divide up into.
Yes.
Could we have the first 5 people to visit the dark room? Because it's a very small space. Not too many security.
No, ma non è equipaggiamento, non è equipaggiamento, tu. No, ho capito benissimo cosa c'è dentro.
Yes, everybody gets it.
It's not confined equipment.
Climb out. It's worth trying.
We could do the kitchen while we do the
Yes.
Really good job. You made it.
Well, I will show you as soon as we break up in the business. I mean, it's
Veronica?
I'm sure you can check. So this is not a kennel for the dog. This is actually a cool box for the food in the house. Yeah. So that we put in some plastic food just to give people the idea that it's not actually a dog.
What was that?
The plastic cool box.
That's my milk for my tea.
When I was in college, I used to leave it out on the windowsill. In winter, it's not really work.
Right, so there it is, you can see the go right.
How amazing is that great job.
So we're trying our best to have the upstairs.
Obviously baskets. This is not.
Sorry. Did you scrape back yours to find
Yes,
colours?
that's so the olive is the lowest colour, and then blue is one up from that.
Yeah.
So whether Carter went for a lighter paint scheme in his final years, or this is from the 40s, who knows, but indeed it would have been a dark, cool place. And we had fun in the kitchen. You missed the previous guys always say
We saw
this
that.
is the dog kennel, and it's obviously a cool room, maybe with ice blocks, maybe just it's in an interior wall, and we had fun filling it with plastic food of the period. And then the kitchen itself, Carter presumably left all of this to his staff. And we've got a picture of the Arabian pantry. It's all fairly simple and low tech. And again, no running water. You'd wash up in a big copper tisht, a charcoal grill. And then on the walls, we've got dry measures from the periods to weigh out your lentils or your fool. A coffee grinder from Chicago House to perk you up in the morning. And then the Sheikh Al Ghaffar, the chief of the guards, the site guards, became very invested in this project. It's great. And he provided us with one of his galabeas. A friend of my colleague Mina gave us this kufan, an overshirt. We found the oldest tarbouche that's still wearable in Luxor, and a nice solid wood, olive wood staff. So it's we've tried to focus also on the Egyptians who made Carter's work and lifestyle here possible, which before was less the case. But it's been fun working with Mina on all of this. The court will go out and see if you're up to it. We can take you around the replica of the tomb, which is a short walk away. The courtyard is later. So before this just looked out into the desert. In the space between the windows, Carter had his aviary, his bird cage with the famous canary.
The canary which passed away, isn't it?
Yeah, and this was built in sort of practically for the renovation.
Yes, no, fair enough.
How are you doing here?
No, but in the... Have you met Brad?
Yes.
No, I'm on it. Maybe I met you once before.
It's looking, we're very happy with the way it's turned out. Thank you.
It's great. It's a big total transformation in the various stages. It's gone through.
It's been funny seeing tour guides come in and they go into what always was his
She's so nice.
is to support research on all
Good afternoon, everyone. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, Minister, I want to thank you all for joining us today and welcome to Carter House. I'm Dr. Louise Bertini, the Executive Director of the American Research Center in Egypt. And on behalf of our organization, I welcome you today to Howard Carter's house in Luxor as we celebrate the centennial of the discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb. I'd like to extend a special welcome to our distinguished guests. First and foremost, the Minister of Tourism and Antiquities and His Excellency Mr. Ahmed Aissa for his support of the project, along with Dr. Mustafa Waziri, Secretary General of the Supreme Council of Antiquities. And of course, the Luxor Inspectorate, along with Dr. Zahi Hawass and Dr. Khalid El-Anani for his support of this project. I also want to extend a very special thanks to our project sponsors and partners without which this project would not have been possible. I want to first thank Adina Lee Savin and the Adina Lee Savin Family Trust, the United States Agency for International Development, FHI 360, the Houston Museum of Natural Science, Chicago House and the Oriental Institute, the Luxor Times, Griffith Institute, the British Embassy, Worcester Art Museum, and the Metropolitan Museum of Art. So if you please join me in thanking them for their leadership, vision, and dedication in bringing this project to life. I also want to thank our opening event sponsors, USAID, FHI 360, and Abercrombie & Kent. We are humbled to have the support of the ministry and our Egyptian friends and colleagues as we work together to contribute to our shared goals of preserving and protecting Egypt's rich cultural heritage. This is an incredible opportunity to gather today at the home of Howard Carter in celebration and recognition of this monumental occasion. Carter's discovery tomb, made exactly 100 years ago today, captured the interest of the world and made Tutankhamun one of the most celebrated figures in world history. The discovery thrust Egyptian archaeology to the forefront of the field. The contents of the tomb and the information provided fascinated for archaeologists, scientists, researchers, and the public for decades. This anniversary is an opportunity to appreciate how the discovery revolutionized our knowledge of ancient Egypt and recognize how Egyptian influence remains a cornerstone of cultural lexicon to this day. In partnership with the Ministry, USAID, FHI 360, and the Adina Lee Savin Family Trust, our generous members and donors of RC, we're honored to complete this restoration project and adaptive reuse of Carter House. RC's mission is to support research on all aspects of Egyptian history and culture, to protect, preserve, and promote Egyptian cultural heritage, and to strengthen American-Egyptian cultural collaboration. Over our 75-year history working in Egypt, we have completed over 95 conservation projects, funded 740 Egyptian, American, and other international research fellows, and supported more than 200 conservation projects through our Egyptian Antiquities Endowment Fund. And none of this work would have been possible without our strong partnership with the Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities. I also want to give special recognition to FHI 360. Through the USAID-funded integrated management of cultural tourism, they are building on the restoration work undertaken by RC to adaptively reuse Carter House, incentivize the private sector, investment at heritage sites, and respond to global trends of experiential tourism. I'd now like to welcome and introduce Salia Sabahi, RC's Heritage Outreach and Planning Manager.
معالي الأستاذ وزير السياحة والآثار، الضيوف الكرام، السادة السفراء المتواجدين معنا اليوم، سيداتي وسادتي. نجتمع اليوم هنا في الجورنة للاحتفال باكتشاف مقبرة توت عنخ آمون، والتي تعتبر من أعظم الاكتشافات في العالم الحديث، وفي فترة زمنية كانت مصر تحاول فيها الاستقلال. في هذه الفترة اكتشفت مقبرة توت عنخ آمون وقناعه ذهبي، وأصبح رامزاً للشخصية المصرية، فهو ليس عثمانية ولا عربية ولا إنجليزية، ولكن مصرية خالصاً. اليوم نتشرف بوجود الأحفاد العظام لمن شاركوا وساهموا في الحفاظ على هذا الاكتشاف. أقدم لكم دكتور مرقس حنا، حفيد مرقس باشا حنا الوزير المصري الذي كان له الفضل في بقاء كنوز الملك المصري في بيتها مصر. وأود أيضا تقديم الشكر للورد جورج كنارفن، حفيد لورد كنارفن الذي مول هذا الكشف. وأود أيضا تقديم الشكر للأحفاد فريق العمل ماكارتر، أسرة عبد الرسول وأسرة جرجار وجميع أهالي الجورنة الذين شاركوا في هذا الكشف. وأخيرا أود تقديم الشكر لدكتور نيكولاس وارنر الذي أشرف على هذا العمل، وأيضا الشكر لأستاذ توم هاردويك والأستاذ مينا ميلاد استشاري المشروع، وهم من سوف يصحبكم أثناء زيارة بيت كارتر اليوم. والنيابة عن مركز بحوث الأمريكي بمصر نشكركم جميعا بالحضور والاحتفاء معنا بهذا الحدث الكبير، وشكرا لكم.
Thank you. I'd now like to welcome our next speaker, British Ambassador to Egypt, His Excellency Mr. Gareth Bailey.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's rather hard to see you because of all the wonderful cameras, but I could just about see straight through to His Excellency Minister Issa, and that is a view that I will cherish for a long time. Your Excellency, Minister, Dr. Mustafa Waziri, Ambassador Rubinstein, Dr. Bertini, Dr. Sabahi, Dr. Warner, Lord and Lady Carnarvon, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. One word, wow. Just wow. There is a danger always when speaking about Tutankhamun, particularly when you're a non-specialist, of falling into hyperbole. To use in the modern idiom the words starry-eyed, overwhelmed, in awe. Hundreds of kilograms of gold making up funeral adornments. Myths and legends around the discovery and excavation of the tomb. The mysterious death of the young king. And of course, the world-famous mask of gold, blue glass, stone inlay, possibly one of the most recognizable and iconic pieces of art there has ever been created. And yet, when it comes to things like this, perhaps sometimes hyperbole is warranted. The discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb was a genuine, bona fide, worldwide sensation. And Harry Burton's photographs in sharp, sharp relief created instant icons, which retained their power one whole century after their exposure. Europeans and Americans were particularly intoxicated, ready for glamour after hard years of war. Paris saw perfumes based on the scent of the pharaohs. There were Tutankhamun board games, fashionable new styles in interior design. Bright young things danced to Tut jazz. And so Tutankhamun became King Tut, and Tutmania and Egyptomania have never stopped since. In my own town of Glasgow in Scotland, far, far away from this sunny valley, in a rainier place not here, we have a club called King Tut's Wawa Hut. And King Tut's Wawa hut, I can assure you, ladies and gentlemen, perhaps is not quite at the level of the boy king and the glamours and wonders of his tomb, but it's a pretty damn fine place to have a party. So, while our Europeans and Americans may have enthused, it is essential, however, to see that the wonders of the tomb are for the whole world, and for Egypt above all, testimony to the efforts of people from all nations. Yes, I stand here a Brit, proud that Britons led the excavation. After all, Howard Carter had forged his career through 31 years of service in and to and for Egypt. And the 5th Earl of Carnarvon had employed Carter as an excavator in Luxor for over a whole decade before the find. Yet this discovery did not just call on 2 men. This called on a huge team of people working together on the find of the century, Egyptians and British together. It is important, it is right that this fact, above all facts, gains in recognition. This story of Tutankhamun is not just a story of kings, of earls, of fine archaeologists. It's a story, as ever, of people. And that story now extends to the team who have painstakingly and carefully restored this tremendous and beautiful house. Their dedicated work means that future generations of Egyptians, curious tourists, and budding Egyptologists will be able to gain a deeper understanding and appreciation for what it took to bring Tutankhamun to the world. 500 years before Tutankhamun was laid to rest, the title character in the 12th dynasty text, the Tale of Senuhe, described his own tomb, and he said this: "There was constructed for me a tomb of stone in the midst of the tombs. The masons that hewed tombs marked out its ground plan. The master draftsmen designed in it. The master sculptors carved in it. And the master architects who were in the necropolis bestowed their care upon it." There are things we still don't fully understand about this tomb. It is small and perhaps repurposed in haste. Many of its contents also had belonged to Tutankhamun's enigmatic predecessors from the heretical Amarna period. But let's just stand one big step back. This tomb remains unparalleled in its contents. The work of those master artisans continues to amaze the world. When Carter described his first view, holding a candle, he said he saw details of the room emerging slowly from the mist. Strange animals, statues, and gold. Everywhere, the glint of gold. Those artisans' work dazzles us now because of the dedication of the excavation team who revealed it. And in turn, the restorers of Carter House perpetuate their legacy for future generations. So, ladies and gentlemen, join me in my final word of tribute to particular special people. My admiration and respect are due, above all, to Dr. Nicholas Warner and his team, and to the generosity, where is he? Where's he gone? You'll see him in a minute. And to the generosity of those who've made their work possible, in particular, the Griffith Institute, Chicago House, many, many others who did so much to share and help what they had to make this house come alive one more time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. I'd now like to introduce his U.S. counterpart, His Excellency Ambassador Daniel Rubenstein, Charge d'Affaires of the United States of America to Egypt.
Thank you very much, everyone. Good afternoon, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It is a true privilege to be with you in Luxor today as we celebrate the Tutankhamun Centennial. Now, over the next 2 weeks, the eyes of the world will be on Egypt as it hosts COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh. But 100 years ago, the eyes of the world descended on Egypt for the region we are here today. Howard Carter's dramatic discovery of the King Tutankhamun in the Valley of the Kings. As Ambassador Bailey noted, few things have kindled the imaginations of past and present generations of Europeans and Americans quite like ancient Egypt, the pharaohs, and of course the story of King Tut. And there's little reason to wonder why. In this story, we encounter a drama that the best screenplay writers in Hollywood could never have dreamed of. A 9-year-old boy becomes a king of one of history's greatest civilizations and is laid to rest almost 10 years later on a journey into the afterlife. Over 3,000 years later, a 17-year-old working-class artist from a small town in England, Howard Carter, moves to Egypt and embarks on a very different journey, which culminates in the discovery of the young king's tomb. But I suspect there's an even deeper reason this story resonates so strongly with us and why we are here today. And it has to do with history and legacy, what we will be remembered for. Ancient Egypt, through its construction of some of the world's best-known cultural symbols and structures, such as the pyramids and the Sphinx, authored a history and created a legacy that went well beyond the work of individual designers and laborers who brought them into existence. Howard Carter had the audacity to leave his small town, seeking to create a life and a legacy for himself. And after years of odd jobs, trials, and setbacks, a not-so-young Carter finally uncovered the treasure that would surpass his own personal sense of fulfillment and unite countries and cultures around the world. Now that is a legacy. And it is this sense of respect for history and the desire to building an enduring legacy that has served as the cornerstone of an unprecedented collaboration between the United States and Egypt in the arena of historic conservation and cultural preservation. Almost 50 years ago, in June 1974, President Nixon and President Sadat signed an important bilateral agreement to reinstate diplomatic relations between our two great nations. And in this agreement, there was a clause specifically devoted to cultural exchanges. Both countries agreed that to exemplify this renewed cooperation, Egypt would send the treasures of Tutankhamun on a museum tour in the United States as a gesture of friendship. And the United States would help Egypt reconstruct Cairo's Opera House. And beginning in 1976, to coincide with our nation's bicentennial, and until 1979, the treasures of Tutankhamun traveled to 6 American cities. Millions of Americans lined up for hours to see the show. Art lovers, history students, travel enthusiasts, entire families and groups of friends itching to catch a glimpse of this ancient, almost mystical exhibit, time and place. The American people fell in love $1 million to help Egypt fund renovations to the Cairo Museum, and it inspired millions of Americans to visit Egypt. Since then, the US government has invested more than $100 million to protect Egypt's extraordinary cultural heritage and ensure that local communities benefit from the growing tourism industry. The US is also supporting efforts to prevent the trafficking of Egyptian antiquities. In Luxor, with extensive support through USAID, has preserved iconic sites, including the Luxor Temple, the Karnak Temple Complex, Medinat Habu, the Valley of the Kings, and many other locations, including where we are today, of course, Howard Carter's house. In Cairo, our projects include protection and restoration of the Sphinx, which was unfortunately at risk of damage due to rising groundwater and salinity levels. In the 1990s, our Congress allocated $35 million to the American Research Center in Egypt, ARCI, and Chicago House to establish endowment funds that remain active and growing this very day. Grants from ARCI's Antiquities Endowment Fund supported more than 200 successful conservation projects, as you heard earlier. And with USAID and Department of State support, these organizations have served as powerful forces for conservation, for education, and for historical research. We also partner with the Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities to train hundreds of Egyptian archaeologists and conservators, equipping Egyptians with state-of-the-art skills to lead the field of Egyptology. And in emphasizing the critical role of local archaeologists, Renowned Egyptian archaeologist and former Minister of Antiquities, Dr. Zahi Hawass said, "I now do all my work with Egyptian teams. Before, it was only foreigners. We need to be their equals, and that means being competitive and better trained. So together, Americans, Egyptians, British, and others from around the globe, we gather today to celebrate a magnificent discovery and achievement. The Howard Carter Center is a symbol of history, legacy, perseverance, determination, and grit. A reminder that together we can accomplish daunting tasks and challenges. And today, the US and Egypt continue to tackle such daunting tasks and challenges together. Among these, none is greater than the climate crisis threatening our world. And our history and our legacy will be defined by the actions we all take to confront the threat. A major step in that journey, ladies and gentlemen, begins this Sunday at the launch of COP27. But as we continue to press on, like those of us who have come before us, I am positive we will discover new treasures, navigate new challenges, and in the process, leave a legacy of partnership, friendship, and collaboration for many generations to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador. And finally, I would like to welcome His Excellency Dr. Mustafa Waziri, Secretary General of the Supreme Council of Antiquities of Egypt.
Thank you, Luis. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We had a nice speech from His Excellency, the Ambassador of England and the American Ambassador. I'm very happy to switch in Arabic to say something from my deep heart. إحنا النهاردة في عرس. إحنا النهاردة كلنا بنحتفل بمرور 100 عام على اكتشاف مقبرة الملك الصغير توت عنخ آمون اللي قدر يبهر العالم كله. كلنا لاحظنا احنا على مدار الشهور والسنين القليلة الماضية قدرنا ان احنا نلفت انظار العالم لمجهودات وزارة السياحة والآثار لتنشيط الحركة السياحية، سواء كان بما يسمى نقل المومياوات الملكية والاحتفال الهائل واحتفالية افتتاح طريق الكباش. من كم شهر احتفلنا ب200 سنة إيجيبتولوجي. من بضع أسابيع احتفلنا بإيفنت هايل في حتشبسوت استيفانو ريتشي. النهاردة 100 سنة توت عنخ آمون. أنا بشكر كل من ساهم في هذا الاحتفال، من السفارة الإنجليزية، السفارة الأمريكية، مركز بحوث الأمريكي، المجلس على آثار منطقة آثار القرنة. أحب أقول حاجة على الكلمة الجميلة لسيادة السفير الأمريكي على روح التعاون ما بين أمريكا ومصر. إحنا في مصر عندنا 250 بعثة أجنبية تعمل في مصر من 25 دولة، من أمريكا، من إنجلترا، من فرنسا، من ألمانيا، من الحمد لله تعاون مشترك غير عادي. سيادة السفير الأمريكي لما قال إحنا بنساعد مصر برضو في عودة الآثار اللي سافرت بطريقة غير شرعية. أنا مبسوط جدا جدا من اللي حصل من المتحف المتروبوليتان في أمريكا لما اكتشفوا في 2018 إنه في تابوت طلع بطريقة غير شرعية واتحط في المتحف. في الحال معالي السفير السابق الأمريكي جه بالتابوت نجم عنخ ورجع المتحف الحضارة، المتحف القومي للحضارة المصرية، ومعروض هناك. عندنا بعض قطع أثرية طلعت برضو بطريقة غير شرعية، بعضها موجود كان في فرنسا، بعضها في أمريكا، بعضها في إنجلترا، بعضها في دول كتيرة جدا. التعاون المشترك بين مصر والدول العالم قدروا انه يرجعوا لنا القطع الاثريه اللي سافرت بطرق غير شرعيه. على مدار ال3 سنوات الماضيه رجعنا اكثر من 29 ألف قطعه اثريه طلعت من مصر بطريقه غير شرعيه. انا الحقيقه بشكر كل زملائنا في العمل الاثري من كل دول العالم. عنده حق معالي السفير، عندنا ما يسمى مع مدارس الفيلد سكول، مدارس الحفاير، في تعاون مشترك، في تدريب بيتم في امريكا وفي فرنسا وفي المانيا وفي انجلترا وفي كل دول العالم. الحمد لله على مدار السنوات القليله الماضيه اكتشافاتنا كبعثات مصريه قدرت تبهر العالم باحدث الاكتشافات الاثريه على مستوى العالم. وانا بشكر تاني كل زملائنا في مجال العمل الاثري من كل دول العالم. هنا في مصر ارض الحضاره، ارض التاريخ، وكل سنه وحضراتكم طيبين. شكرا.
No, thank you. And now we will serve lunch.
T-shirts and posters. And about 3 months ago, I was up in the woods and I wrote a song.
يلا يا بنو.
I didn't know I just searched my name and I was just like, as soon as the music came out, I was just like, now I feel like.
يا عم انت محمود يا عم جايبك فين؟